The vaccinations are in my mind, the third delivery system. First is the chemical trails of the jets, drones, and rockets. The second delivery system is the GMO food production that we've been subject to for a few decades. And then the third is vaccinations the moment we arrive on the planet as little babies. And then getting also the older people to get their flu vaccinations, etc. All of this is a massively conscious, intentional delivery system for a very different human being that the transhumanists would like to at least use many of us for experimentation, but also to push forward into an enhanced human being, a BCI, brain-computer interface human being, a cyborg. It's all connected and via the wireless electromagnetics that we are now plugged into. And I'm not being metaphorical, we are plugged in, not just through our cell phones, in a way that goes straight to our body and brain through the nanotechnology. The nanotech really is just swarm, it's just a bunch that come together. And if you set the programming right in that swarm, it will serve you. It will do what you tell it remotely. So this is a weapon as well. Everything's weaponized. Now add the piece that we're all breathing these in, and they're in us, and they're in our brain. Because they're nano-sized, they can easily bypass the blood-brain barrier. So what's that mean when you're bringing 5G to Wuhan? What does that mean? 5G is absolutely a weaponized system. So now the nanos are coming down to us, and they go in our soil, and they wreck our trees, and they are in our bodies, and they are on our skin, and they are on all our fruits and vegetables growing in the earth. This is our big problem, in my opinion. The more nanotech we have in us with the heavy metals on the nanoscale, the less cognizant we are, and the dopier we get, you might say. Disease, like Ebola, like Corona, whatever the disease, will be able to, if they know the frequency of the disease, the signature frequency of every disease has a certain signature. If they can relay that signature, they will be able to spread a disease just with the signature. They won't need the virus there. A disease signature would definitely do that if you had the nanobots in place, because what would happen is you would send in the message of the signature. That would be, like a communication. The nanobots would have been pre-programmed in order to receive such communication, and they would start to work right away throughout the body and brain. Boom. And they would relay that signature to every part of that body and brain, and that person would just drop like a deflated balloon. So that is very possible that this was one of the purposes of what happened. When we come to the earth to have our life, we have to be free to make our choices. I do not want a V2K in my head telling me what to do. I do not want someone else's thoughts in my head making me feel like I'm not myself.
Hacking humans with nanotechnology may sound like a concept from a futuristic science novel or movie, but the truth is, it's not that far off, and it could be the next big cyber threat. Some ideas include a tiny device that gets injected into the body as a sensor or medical delivery device. This all sounds positive, but there's a downside too. Is it secure? Tiny nano devices are typically controlled by a program on a traditional electronic device like a computer, smartphone, or server, meaning they could be very hackable. Some digital security experts posit that a single nanoparticle in the body with its own processor could be hacked, but they also say that if someone had more than one particle in the body, a hacker could theoretically turn them into a network in the body, using the body's own systems to communicate and do their bidding. If a hacker took over your inner nanotechnology devices, they could demand a ransom with fatal consequences. If you're unable or unwilling to pay, they could easily turn your body against you, and at the very least make you suffer or get sick, if not kill you. It may also be possible for unsavory characters to use nanotechnology itself against their enemies, not only in hacking attacks such as inhalable particulate powders to treat lungs. Some worry this technology could be an easily weaponized delivery method for bioterrorism efforts beyond the hacking dangers. Getting infected with something could be as simple as breathing the air, taking a shower, or getting a regular vaccination from your doctor.
Right now, if you look at everything that's going on, we are financing the people who are attacking and destroying us. And I always tell people, Bill Gates put an operating system on your computer that gave somebody a backdoor and made you update it constantly, and the excuse was there's a new virus. Well, they're going to play the same game with your bodies, because if you can get brain-machine interface into a human body, or, a tattoo on a human body, part of the quantum dot tattoos. If you download nanotechnology in everybody that gives you a brain-machine interface, you don't need state and local government. You can just lock them up into the Jedi cloud at the Department of Defense and manage them directly. What you have to do is you have to fight vaccine mandates. These are not vaccines. Vaccine under the laws of medicine. You have nanoparticles, nanotechnology, you have things that alter your gene. These things are very experimental, and they're talking about using them without animal trials or the appropriate kind of trial. Normal trials, it would take you 2 years. I think one of the reasons they want contact tracing is so that they can deal with all the disability and sort of sickness that's going to come from injecting bio-waste into human bodies. One of the things that's in this is aborted fetal tissue. So you've got aborted fetal tissue, you've got heavy metals, you've got the history of these injections is very, very ugly. And it's one of the reasons 54% of the children in America have chronic disease, because of all the sort of foreign matter that's been going into our veins from this stuff. This is not medicine. A surveillance tracker is not medicine. What Bill Gates is proposing to put the equivalent of a Microsoft operating system in your body that can be hooked up to their cloud, and so you can be hooked up to the AI, and all that data can make the AI very, very smart, including teaching robots how to do your job. And the new system is very much what some people call a transhumanist system. It's a credit system where they can cut you off centrally. If you look at the police powers, they're suggesting under the rubric and excuse of healthcare, they're talking about, you can't go to the store unless you let us inject you with these mystery agreements. You can't work unless you do. You can't do this, you can't do that. So you're talking about creating police powers that are going to give you very tyrannical central controls. You know, this is ripping up the Constitution to an exponential degree. I think we're talking about the greatest experiment. Basically, this is non-consensual human experimentation of taking nanotechnology, gene editing, gene altering materials, heavy metals, bio-waste, aborted fetals, and basically experimenting, injecting it into millions, if not billions of people. They want to go to a system where 7 billion people around the planet are literally integrated into the cloud and can operate with an all-digital system that is the equivalent of a credit on a company store. It's a control system. And if you look at what they're talking about putting into these injections or doing with them, you know, you're basically talking about a slavery system. Now, why are they saying there's going to be a second wave? Do you know what's going to happen in September, October? They're going to finish getting all the Starlink satellites up, and they're going to start turning 5G on, and they're turning it on all over the country. And of course, they know it's going to make a lot of people sick. So it wouldn't surprise me if the second wave is the cover story for all the extraordinary damage that's going to be done to our health by the injections. Once you load in 5G, you've got crowd control technology and you've got mind control technology with it. And for them, if you're going to maintain central control in a machine model, you need to stop people from resonating with divine intelligence and resonating with living things and resonating with each other and get everybody hooked into the machine. And that's what this is really about. Are we going to be governed by God? Are we going to be governed by central powers who are controlling us through the machine?
Coronavirus ist ein RNA-Virus. Das Genom des Coronavirus besteht aus Ribonukleinsäure, nicht so wie bei uns aus DNA, Desoxyribonukleinsäure. Wichtig ist aber zu wissen, dass auch wir in unseren genetischen Prozessen RNA haben. Die RNA ist nämlich bei uns eine Art Transkript, eine Abschrift von unserer genetischen Information. Und die wird genutzt, um in der sogenannten Proteinbiosynthese die Eiweißstoffe unseres Körpers, die wir brauchen, um zu funktionieren, eben aufzubauen. Und da setzen alle genetischen Impfstoffe ein. Sie versuchen, diese Protein-Biosynthese unserer Zellen zu manipulieren. Sie hacken sich da sozusagen hinein, indem sie fremde Informationen einschleusen. Man bringt keinen klassischen Impfstoff mehr ein, dass man zum Beispiel ein abgestorbenes Virus oder ein lebendiges Virus oder Proteine des Virus direkt einbringt, sondern man bringt die genetische Information ein, die dann durch eine Manipulation unserer Zellen dazu führt, dass wir selbst das Protein herstellen. Da wird schon seit 20 Jahren dran geforscht, aber es ist insofern eine vollkommen neue Art des Impfstoffs, als es noch nie einen RNA- oder sonstigen genetischen Impfstoff gab, der für die Anwendung zugelassen wurde. Zum Beispiel, das ist sehr relevant, dass gegen SARS und MERS, das sind beides Coronaviren, ein RNA-Impfstoff getestet wurde und der musste bereits in der präklinischen Phase wieder abgebrochen werden, weil sich gezeigt hat, dass es im Lungengewebe zu einer Autoimmunreaktion, zu einer schweren Entzündungsreaktion kommen kann. Und ungewollte Immunreaktionen sind eben die Hauptrisiken, auch Langzeitrisiken der RNA-Impfungen. Alle favorisierten Impfstoffkandidaten sind genetische Impfstoffe. Sind nicht nur die RNA-Impfstoffe, sondern eben auch ein DNA-Impfstoff. Das ist besonders besorgniserregend und es könnte zu einer Insertion dieser DNA in unser Genom kommen und das könnte dann dazu führen, dass Onkogene aktiviert werden, dann steigt das Krebsrisiko. Deswegen ist es so wichtig, hier keine Verkürzungen bei der Zulassungsphase zu machen. Und es ist erschreckend, wie viele Expertinnen und Experten, auch Virologen, empfehlen, dass man Impfregularien aussetzen soll. Auch Bill Gates hat gesagt, man sollte es in spätestens 18 Monaten schaffen, obwohl man eigentlich noch mindestens 5 Jahre dafür bräuchte. Es sind schon viele genetische Impfstoffe gescheitert. Es ist noch nie einer zugelassen gewesen. Und jetzt will man in kürzester Zeit einen solchen Impfstoff auf den Markt bringen, finde ich extrem problematisch. Die ersten genetischen Impfstoffe, die in die klinischen Phasen zugelassen wurden, waren alle von Unternehmern, die von der Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation gesponsert wurden, wo also Bill Gates als Investor aufgetreten ist. Da sieht man auch, welche Macht er hat. Was er sagt, das gilt in dieser Branche. Er betreibt starkes Lobbying für bis jetzt unausgereifte genetische Technologien. Er empfiehlt diese Verkürzungen und das ist für mich eine sehr dubiose Angelegenheit. Ich persönlich würde mich sicher nicht gegen Covid-19 impfen lassen mit einem Impfstoff, der unter verkürzten Zulassungsstandard auf den Markt gekommen ist. Ich würde mich auch ganz sicher nicht mit einem RNA- oder DNA-Impfstoff impfen lassen und jetzt sieht es sehr nach dieser Art von Impfstoff aus, weil ich weiß als Biologe, als Biowissenschaftler, dass diese Technologie noch nicht ausreichend ausgereift ist, um jetzt in die Anwendung zu gehen.
Project BEST it's an acronym. BEST stands for Better Education Skills Through Technology. It was part of Reagan's private sector initiative, and basically it planned to use public-private partnerships to basically merge the government with the corporate sector using what back then was called the Skinner box technology. And so it's basically based on B.F. Skinner's adaptive learning or operant conditioning, stimulus response conditioning. You're going to change classical education, so you're going to change education from the art of learning, and you're going to change it to a science of psychological conditioning that'll be facilitated by big technology companies. Basically, what we're going to see is the next phase of Project BEST being rolled out, okay? And so one of the simplest ways you can see that is through something called the new distance learning regulations. Basically, what this is going to do is deregulate the rules for what they call distance learning. That means online learning or virtual learning. If you take a look at that, those federal regulations, you'll see in those clauses 3 particular agendas. Okay, so one is called competency-based education, another is called direct instruction, and then another is called the adaptive learning software. Okay, which they refer to as artificial intelligence. So basically, the three of them all together means this: instead of a human teacher needing to actually provide the feedback, you can have the AI do that with the adaptive learning algorithms. They can provide the direct instruction, and it can be on a competency-based process. Since COVID, there was over $250 million of Gates Foundation money spent out for a range of different educational assistance during COVID crisis. And that ranged from everything from the adaptive learning software to other big data mining projects, workforce training projects, but also funding universities to help with COVID research and vaccine development. So if you dig around in the Gates Foundation grants, you can see some money going out to an institution called Innovate EDU. Innovate EDU is setting up basically an app, a network that will allow schools to aggregate all their data into something called BigQuery. What does this database look like? Well, basically it looks like something that is now defunct. It's called InBloom. InBloom was basically, it had contracts with an Amazon cloud that was ran on a server by News Corp. And basically it wanted to put all the student data into this one cloud. And so what's the idea there? It's basically to develop AI. And so it's basically they're going to take all that data, all the student data, all the teaching data, all the learning data, all that cognitive behavioral data, and also what they call socio-emotional learning data. Okay, so the students' thinking algorithms and the students' feeling algorithms, they're going to take all that data and they're going to use it not just to develop better ed tech products, so better adaptive learning software and things like that, but also to develop basically down the line AGI, or artificial general intelligence, so to develop, basically an artificial consciousness. So they've already created the loopholes where basically they can take this data and crunch it for whatever, advances in technology they want to use.
If COVID-19 had been the first sensationalized virus, I think there's a chance that I would have fallen for it and even fallen for the hoopla that followed it. But I had been, following the sensationalism of viruses had been going on for over 10 years. And, every virus had a different name, and they tried, they made the names of them, sound progressively more scary, that kind of thing. So every virus had a different name, but the outcome was always the same. So the people were terrorized by it. And then the dire, scary, terrifying predictions would not come through, but a vaccine would be made anyway. So that's the pattern. That's been going on for over 10 years. When I saw that this was coming out, I figured, here's another one.
Right.
Here we go again. Same old, it's going to be the same old story. The difference with this one is that the same scenario, but it led to basically lockdown world. I'm not a corporate employee. I don't have to impress my boss. I don't have to cover for my boss. I don't need to answer to a CEO of a corporation. I answer to my patients. So when I found out that the death numbers were being over-reported, I felt like that was a truth that needed to be told. But the hospitals and doctors aren't just making money off the really sick and the people that die of it. It's much more than that. Hospitals got stimulus money. So basically, vast majority of doctors abandoned their patients for 2 to 3 months. So the patients didn't even have access to their primary care physician. And then I know for a fact they are asking for compensation for themselves for the downtime in their clinic.
Wow.
And the suicides and the increased domestic violence and homicides and all that is predictable. It was predicted that was going to happen with the lockdown, and it has happened. The real disease is that, we the people, people throughout the world, have allowed elected and unelected bureaucrats to take our freedoms. I mean, a lot of us are resistant to it and resisting to the extent that we can, but the majority of people are allowing this to happen. Some people are asking the government to come and save them. So we have voluntarily, overall, we've allowed those bureaucrats to take our freedoms from us. The right to work, the right to peaceably assemble, the right to of freedom of religion, the right for people to see their loved ones. All those have been, and that's just a kind of a brief summary. There are many more rights that have been taken from us, and we're continuing to allow that to happen. So that's the real disease.
Creo que lo más importante en este momento es el miedo, que la gente no tenga miedo, por favor, no se contagia por ni lo de los guantes, ya no es necesario los guantes, están provocando muchísimos problemas de dermatitis, de contacto, de problemas. Las personas siguen poniéndose los guantes. Es gravísimo lo que pasa en las empresas. Están obligando constantemente a poner los guantes. Personas con llagas en las manos y que se sigue obligando a poner los guantes. Personas con mascarilla y que se sigue obligando a poner mascarilla. Y el 5 de junio del 2020, la OMS describe uno por uno los efectos dañinos de la utilización de mascarillas a nivel poblacional. En personas sanas, enfermedades respiratorias, alto riesgo de autocontaminación, proliferación de microorganismos, neumonías, infecciones de vías respiratorias altas y vías respiratorias bajas por el uso de mascarillas. Lo expone y lo pone la OMS. La OMS ha tenido una divulgación de la información totalmente irresponsable. Totalmente irresponsable, porque en sus ruedas de prensa estaba constantemente lanzando estudios científicos no definitivos, probabilidades, y la divulgación a los medios de comunicación está prohibida en los estudios preliminares, está prohibida éticamente. Y eso fue lo que no hizo la OMS y todos los medios de comunicación alrededor. No se puede divulgar esa información a la población en general que no tiene conocimientos suficientes como para hacer una interpretación de la misma y recibir esa información. Por tanto, las medidas sociales de las que realmente estamos todos sometidos es lo que realmente nosotros queremos modificar y denunciamos esa parte por no considerarla correcta. No nos olvidemos que en la televisión se decía, si usted está mal, quédese en casa. No vaya al médico. Tengo testimonios de que han pedido al médico por favor que vaya a casa y no han ido. Personas que han amenazado con llamar a la policía en plena pandemia porque no iban las ambulancias y no les llevaban a los hospitales. Personas que han agravado su enfermedad y sé perfectamente lo que hablo. Porque han agravado su enfermedad, porque no se le trató correctamente, personas jóvenes, que se provocó con esa gestión sanitaria el agravamiento de la enfermedad y en muchísimos casos la muerte. Es una enfermedad que es un virus no letal por sí mismo, no mata por él mismo, como puede ser el ébola o el patógeno del anthrax. No mata por sí mismo. Las vacunas solo son para virus letales realmente. El hecho de ser infectados con virus no quiere decir que haya una mortalidad. Sí quiere decir que fortalece nuestro sistema inmunitario. Igual que las dificultades en la vida hace que la persona sea más fuerte y más capaz para gestionar todos los problemas que puede encontrar en la vida. El sistema inmunitario exactamente igual, pero el sistema inmunitario tiene que fortalecerse con las playas abiertas, con los ríos abiertos, con los montes abiertos, con el aire libre, con la alegría, sin miedo, sin angustia y sin pánico, como hay actualmente. Y nos cerraron nuestras playas, nuestros ríos y nuestros montes.
Many people find it hard to accept a few people could orchestrate a whole global pandemic hoax. But in fact, when we understand the structure of how the world's controlled, it becomes relatively straightforward. I've talked for decades about a global cult, what some call the 1%, a global web of interconnected strands of secret societies, semi-secret groups, and then in the public arena, government agencies. And all of these groups appear on the surface to be unconnected. They aren't. You can symbolize the way this global web works as the structure of a global corporation. Say McDonald's with a headquarters at a point in the world, and in every other country you have the subsidiaries that operate according to the centrally dictated headquarters. And so you go into a McDonald's in Russia, South Africa, Australia, America, Britain, and you're basically going into the same McDonald's operating in the same way. And this global cult structures itself in very similar lines. At the center of the web, and this is in the shadows, you have what I call the spider. This is the inner core of the cult that is driving the direction of the world. And then in each country, they have a subsidiary network, certain families and secret societies. Their job is to impose the will of the center, the spider, dictating policy in virtually every country. And in each of these subsidiary networks on a national level, you have the pyramids of government and politics, banking and finance, pyramids of media ownership, and the pyramids of the medical system. So if you take health policy, the few at the top in each country are dictating how doctors and the rest of the medical profession have to act, what they have to do. The medical profession then follow overwhelmingly, unquestioningly. And those who do question and resist find themselves and their careers in often serious trouble. And the top of these pyramids in each country answer to the same master globally, the spider. And therefore the will of the spider is dictating what the policy will be right across the world. Just the people at the top impose it upon the pyramid structure in its entirety. So if we look globally at this pandemic, first of all, so important, forget borders. This cult does not have borders. They are for the public. This cult is global and operates globally. So that's the structure of how this pandemic, officially pandemic, hoax has been played. And it's what is driving the policy day by day to transform human society into what they call the new normal, the great reset, the great scam to transform life on Earth.
It is abundantly clear that the whole coronavirus hoax is being organised and scripted by psychologists who specialise in brainwashing and what are known in military circles as psychological warfare. There has been a global coup led by the United Nations with the World Health Organization, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, by the World Economic Forum and a variety of other billionaires. Their aims are quite straightforward. They want to reorganize the world, they want a world government, they want to destroy everything which we regard as normal. They want to destroy our history. They're using the Black Lives Matter campaign to help with that. And they want to force us to use the internet for everything. They want us all vaccinated regularly, and they want us to carry immunity passports if we want to leave our homes, buy things, or obtain medical assistance. They want us tracked and traced every minute of the day. They want us to use telephone apps for all our purchases, and they want us all to be dependent upon the state. They want to eradicate small companies so that large multinationals can satisfy all our needs, and they want to replace people with robots. The future they have planned for us bears very little resemblance to the world to which we've got accustomed. And the coronavirus is a key part of the plan. It's the virus which is going to terrify us into obeying their orders without question. They want to get rid of the elderly, the middle classes and schools. They want children to be educated via the internet, and they aren't terribly interested in how well educated they are at the end of their schooling. Forcing children to follow social distancing rules is completely unnecessary and so cruel it can only be described as evil. It'll create emotionally damaged children who are germophobic, suicidal, homicidal, neurotic and psychotic. Many will become psychopathic. They want to reduce the global population, forcing us into isolation, making pubs unbearable and closing nightclubs will help stop boys meeting girls and vice versa. It's no coincidence that the authorities have for the last few years been encouraging homosexuality, transsexuality and gender reassignment. They want to control everything. They want our bodies, our minds and our souls. And unless we fight back, we'll soon be nothing but slaves of the system. It may seem as though you're alone, but you're not. Many more people are waking up every day, and together we will win this war.
people who want to think for themselves. And people die every year. This is nothing new. This is nothing new, people.
Take off your mask! Take off your mask! Take off your mask! De mascarilla de nada de eso siguiente implementado con el policía más hombre con rey
Die Menschen hier demonstrieren gegen die Einschränkung der Grundrechte.
Und durch das in Gefahr durch die Corona-Verordnung, die es ja gibt und die halt eben viele Dinge einschränkt. Sachen, die es vorher in unserem Land so in der Art und Weise noch nie gegeben hat. Dass man sich zum Beispiel nicht frei bewegen darf.
Eingeschränkte Versammlungsfreiheit, Masken- und Impfpflicht sind nach Meinung der Demonstranten ein Angriff auf die Grundrechte.
Una cosa es el virus, que es un hecho sanitario, y otra la cuarentena, que es un hecho político. Y como todo hecho político busca un fin, que ya sabemos cuál es el fin a lo que apunta esta gente. Se les adelantó. Lo que iban a hacer en 4 años lo están haciendo en 6 meses. Claro. Es más, los medios de comunicación tampoco quedan indemnes de todo esto. No se plantearon ni siquiera la duda de que es la cosa más mínima a cualquier inteligencia humana. Ni la duda se plantearon. O sea que mienten por lo que no dicen. Yo lo único que veo en la televisión son epidemiólogos que hablan en contra, a favor de la cuarentena, pero no veo la otra biblioteca de los epidemiólogos que hablan que esto es una locura, que es cavernícola. Bueno, eso es lo que yo estoy viendo. ¿Por qué le tenemos que creer a la OMS? ¿Quién está atrás de todo esto? Gracias. Después te dicen conspiranoico. ¿Por qué no averiguan quién es? La Fundación Bill y Melinda Gates, Soros.
¡Viva los trabajadores unidos!
Over the past few months during the pandemic, the UN has been hastily putting out new information about zoonotic diseases. Quote, never before have so many opportunities existed for pathogens to pass from wild and domestic animals to people. What they mean is divorcing humanity from nature, separating these filthy, disease-ridden animals from humans who should, after all, be sealed hermetically into the smart cities so that we can keep them safe. A new narrative is being crafted. Because, ladies and gentlemen, if you're going to spend trillions of dollars devising and building smart cities with perfect electronic surveillance everywhere, where everything you do or say is logged, but you're not going to build those things unless you also build some mechanism that you will use to herd all of humanity into those prisons. And that's what this narrative is. When the coronavirus first busted onto the scene in January and was called something that emerged from a dirty meat market in China, I immediately recognized that these two things were related, that this was part of the agenda to associate disease with meat. The forces have been at work for many years now to try and make meat unappetizing to people, to try and create these fake foods and shove them in under the door. The IPCC put out a new report last year that said we have to end meat eating and animal agriculture and we have to start eating insect protein. Well, I mean, literally, they've been talking about making meat illegal, or even minimally adding a meat tax, a luxury tax, a fat tax. Quote, it's time for a global divestment campaign against the meat industry. It's now proven itself to be as harmful to human health as the fossil fuel industry. COVID-19 is continuing to climb. This is because of meat factories. Meatpacking plants are refusing to go to work. They're afraid of getting sick because of all that propaganda that the media is pushing out. And of course, this is continuing. Now we're seeing in Europe, Germany shut down its largest beef and pork plant. There's an outbreak announced in Wales in the United Kingdom. And so this is playing out across Europe and the world. And here's where we get to their plan. We also need to call for much more activism. This is the animal rebellion. And we've seen that Antifa was arming its agents with maps of animal agriculture businesses, of ranchers basically. And briefly, let me first acknowledge, I hate factory farming. This isn't real agriculture. This is a disgusting straw man that they have created so that they can now burn it down and stand up their fake systems and say that that was the old way of doing things. This is not the old way of doing things. Regenerative, holistic, indigenous practices. That's what we need to get back to. The CEO of Impossible Foods, who is saying we're going to end animal agriculture by 2035. And of course, he's got the resources, the billions of Bill Gates and other large billionaires behind them. So if you are a rancher, you're not getting any loans. If you are a small butcher or a meat processor independent, you're not going to get any financial assistance to keep that operation running. Now, the case that's being made is that only fake meat companies, only green, synthetic lab-grown meat companies will be given funds going forward. And that's why the billionaires are throwing billions of dollars at fake meat, lab-grown meat, 3D printed vegan steaks. So you can see the fat and the blood, which are neither fat nor blood, being layered on by the 3D printer to make this fake meat. That's what they want you to eat because they control it, because they want total control.
Essentially, the vegan ideology can be used as a vehicle to usher in globalism and globalist policies. Now, as innocent as veganism may seem, if you actually scratch the surface, the more you'll find when you start questioning vegans and their lifestyle, it's a lot bigger than just a diet. It's actually an ideology, and to some degree, it's a cult. A global population census estimated that in order for the entire global population to switch to an all-vegan diet, they would essentially have to adapt a one-child policy. And with our current global population, you'd have to essentially take all of the arable land, all of the good farmable land, and turn it into agricultural land for the production of crops and vegetables. In the developed world, veganism is a luxury diet that many trendy liberals can enact. But in reality, in most other countries, it's not anywhere near practical or realistic for them to enact a vegan diet. What's unnatural is to push an ideology, a diet, and a lifestyle that actually could not be sustained in real life if it weren't solely dependent on technology. We would have to have Agenda 21 enacted, where everyone's forced into little cities in sky-rise buildings in order to survive in this new type society, where we would have forced resource-based controlled societies that would all be living off of a vegan diet.
When you look at the dry weight of human body, at the bulk of human body, it's about 50-50 protein and fat. And when we analyze that protein in our bodies, its biochemical structure, it is very similar to proteins that we get from meat, fish, eggs, and dairy. Plants are full of protein, but the protein in the plants has inappropriate amino acid structure for the human body. When we look at the second part of the dry weight of the human body, the fat. Fat is a structural element of the human body. 50% of our dry weight is fat. Protein and fats from animal foods, they are the substances that digest properly in the human stomach, absorb, and then build our heavy structure, our heavy physical structure. On top of that, what we need to understand that all of our lives, cells in the human body get old, they die, and new baby cells are born all the time to replace the old cells. That's what rejuvenates us and allows us to heal ourselves and maintain our own bodies. So when it comes to building the human body, only animal foods are suitable. Plants are unable to build the human body, but they're wonderful cleansers, and that's what Mother Nature gave them to us for. They have wonderful ability to keep our bodies clean on the inside, removing byproducts of our own metabolism and any toxicity that got in from the outside. So in order to keep our bodies well fed and well built and clean on the inside, we combine the animal foods with the plants. Many people don't realize that veganism is not a diet. It is a form of fasting. One cannot fast forever. At a certain point, your body will finish cleansing and it will become hungry, and it will give you a signal. I want a pot of cream. I want fat. I want cheese. I want eggs. Problem is, many people choose this lifestyle for emotional reasons, religious reasons, and other reasons, and they override that signal. They force their body to continue cleansing when the body finished cleansing and it wants to be fed. And that is the moment when the body starts cannibalizing itself, It starts breaking down muscle in order to feed the heart and the brain and the liver and other vital organs, which are far more important than the muscle. It starts breaking down bone, it starts breaking down other tissues. That's when these people start developing chronic illness.
The brain is a fatty organ. It's got a high fat content. Because brain has cell regeneration processes going on all the time. And these new baby cells need building materials to be made from. They have to be made from cholesterol, saturated fats, proteins. And if the blood cholesterol is low, the brain is not getting enough to maintain its structure and to function properly. People with low blood cholesterol have aggressive personalities and poor self-control. It is associated with violence, aggression, and suicide. Our immune cells are high-fat cells. If you have a low level of cholesterol in your blood, your bone marrow is starving. It cannot manufacture immune cells, blood cells, and many other cells. As a result, you become prone to infections.
You must have some animal foods present in your diet in order to provide building, feeding blocks for your body to maintain its physical structure. If you don't, then that's a sliding, slippery slope to illness.
planet is engulfed in crises, from COVID-19 to climate change to economic upheaval, religious and racial violence, all happening at once. We can focus on the individual crises, but that's a problem because the crises are all a collection of crises because there's one overriding crisis that is represented, and that is we are not sustainable as a civilization. Human civilization has precipitated what is called the sixth mass extinction of life on this planet. So the Earth is calling on us to wake up at this moment. Wake up because our time is short. And it's relevant to wake up now because science, when it became the truth provider of Western civilization 150 years ago, also separated us from nature because science says we got here by accidents of mutation. I say, well, why is it relevant? Because if we're here by accident, then I say, then what's our purpose? And the answer is, how can you have a purpose if you came from accident? Again, between religion and science, we have been separated from the environment, given a mission to control that environment. And I say, how's that working out? And the answer is clear. We are creating our own extinction at this moment because we have lost contact with nature. Somehow or other, we think we are separate from nature. We evolved from nature. And now the wake-up call is coming and saying, listen, you are not living in harmony. And it's time for you to recognize you are part of a bigger global scheme. We also must recognize a very important fact that a garden is not a battleground. And we look at the planet today as this battle for survival and competition when I go, no, a garden is the height of cooperation. So we are being called upon this moment to come together, to cooperate and create a new world. And fortunately, there's a revision of science that changes everything. Quantum physics, the most valid science on this planet, has come in and told us the most important fact, that this material expression is an illusion of consciousness, that consciousness is creating our life experiences. So science is calling on us to say, we have to change our conscious awareness of how we live on this planet. And between that, which is the spiritual foundation of science, quantum physics, the new science of epigenetics also shows that our consciousness is controlling our genetics and our behavior. And so we're left with a very interesting situation at this moment. And that is the whole foundation of new, modern, revisionist science, which takes us from a world of threats and fights and all that into a world of peace and harmony and love. We are in the throes of our own extinction. We're here for a wake-up call. Mother Nature is giving us an opportunity. She's giving us this chance to say, listen, you haven't been in harmony, but now is the time to do so. Because the time, the clock is ticking. We're coming near an end. And yet, we can change our consciousness. And consciousness being the creator means we can change the creation that we're experiencing. It's a very similar story for every one of us, to wake up and recognize we are more than this physical body. We are spiritual entities living in a world. And it's even more to my way of thinking, because most people think that we die and go to heaven if you're doing well. I really look at it in a very different way. I think we're born into heaven. This is where we came to create. And the creation that we've been providing is not sustainable. And so here's the wake-up call. Change. Start to recognize we're all one family of humans, and all humans are one part of Mother Nature, and that a garden needs to be built again because we've desecrated that garden. I'm honored to be here on this planet because at this time we have the opportunity to manifest heaven on earth once we understand we are the garden. And this is the wake-up call at this moment, to start to learn to live in harmony, not just with each other, but to learn to live in harmony with the garden that created us. We are not separate. We are all one.